And our next person requires no introduction. Mark. Here you go, Mark.
I'm here.
Wait, you
Hi.
need the changelog thing.
I always forget. I
Okay,
always
take
forget.
my
Does that go before or after me? Okay, go for it.
before. I
Okay,
think
whatever you want.
before.
Okay, so let's do this again. So before we introduce Mark, we have the cue.
I'm here again.
Oh,
Much
Mark.
nicer, much nicer.
We'll cut that piece off in the post post production part. Changelog number 9, Mark.
We're not numbering them anymore.
No, this is the last time we're gonna number it.
Yeah, I'm ready
Ready?
to do it. Yeah.
So I'm gonna.
Now the cue.
I should get the cue.
See, I thought that's what it was. I thought it was okay. It's fine.
You
I thought
it-
we played it.
You're right. You're right.
I thought we played it for the presentation, not for me. Like I am not.
I think
You're the changelog.
I think
Oh,
right
that's
now
what-
what
okay.
we're doing is we're doing this,
Experimenting.
yes, we're doing this confusion discussion about this. And that's basically the bit. I mean, does it go now? Does it go later? Yeah. So
Okay,
B.
fair.
Marker.
I'm fine with that bit. I'm
Okay.
fine with that. All right, let's get started. I actually don't remember if this is more or less. It's from changes from last time. It looks around the same.
Around the same number. Around the same. I think it was 64 last time.
Okay, so we're getting there, getting more. As usual, thank you to everyone. It's a huge number, and I don't know if it gets any bigger. I probably have the same reaction, and I'm sad because if this starts getting to like hundreds, I'm gonna be like, oh god. I'm just gonna like pretend like it's not so big, that there's not so many people helping out, but still really appreciate it. Anyway, first off, I'll start with Chris, as we normally have. I think for the past 9 changelogs. I don't know how many that we started with him, but he tends to make the big changes. So the big one here actually combines something that Alad did, and I'll let him talk about it more. But the main feature to talk about here is that like the existing like Cloud and X and Redis and other libraries that we had that were built in, there are now a series of libraries that are not built in.
Built out.
They're built out, but they are trusted is the important part. So we have Winglib's namespace and npm and a repo in the Wing organization for hosting these libraries, and you can guarantee that they're vetted and they're controlled, in a communal but also somewhat authoritative way to make sure that you're not pulling in weird dependencies that either for whatever reason don't meet the general standards of the community. An extra benefit of this is that you don't have to alias them. They have names that you can just use as is, like our previous built-ins that I mentioned, and yeah, you can just use them. There's a few that are already existing. The first one was this containers thing, which I'll let Alad talk about if he wants to, because I don't have a separate slide for this. So if you want to,
I think we did talk about it.
Yeah.
So.
I think we did.
Okay. Well, then fair enough. Then that's the change.
Yeah, I'm I'm excited about this. I think it's an interesting experiment. We've been debating whether we need something like this or not. But my experience with like publishing a lot of libraries, managing a lot of libraries when I was at AWS, and kind of being thinking a lot about ecosystems, is that having, let's call it a two-layered trust model, where you have like kind of like an app store, like the Apple App Store, where you go to the App Store and you know that you're going to get something that's trusted, but then also an open ecosystem, so you can like literally publish without any constraints, and creating like little signals in the ergonomic signals that will help people differentiate between the two. I'm pretty proud of that. I feel like that's an interesting kind of design solution, and I'm curious to see where it goes. I think the other interesting benefit is that everything that goes into the repository, the Winglibs repository, gets shipped by us. So we're basically managing the publishing process, and that's actually a lot of work. Like it's much more work than people appreciate originally. Like it's semantic versioning and API documentation and dependency upgrades and a lot of things like that. So I think it's not just trusted, but it's also managed in a way. And I hope that that's going to help the Wing ecosystem to be like a good and healthy and.
Somewhere you can see the author of these containers, for example. I mean, who's the real author of this?
I mean, it's part of the metadata of your package.
Okay,
so
it does still have that.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, I mean, we still need to work on what does ownership mean in the context as this evolves. So there's plenty of room for that. I want to mention on packaging that Wing packages are, we've talked about it before, but they're packaged as source, which is also a distinct thing that so there's actually different packaging concerns than even normal npm packages you publish npm. So as if it weren't complicated enough, it's really great that we're going to handle as this evolves and what we're going to do differently for this ecosystem.
Yeah. Another benefit is that every time we do a breaking change, we can fix all these libraries at once.
Yeah, which by the way, I think we need to change the constructor name.
I've done that for like the two things that I own.
The two trusted
trusted libraries that I own out of 3.
Okay.
Postgres.
Oh, nice.
Okay, I just need to make sure. I think I checked it earlier today, and I was like, something broke.
Yeah. No, but I think like we need some more like automation around this and like alerting and stuff like that. But definitely having a single repository is going to make it possible.
Yep. So that's that. I'll go on to the next one, which actually, give me a sec. Oh God.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I need to do this. Control F. There we go. Okay. Sorry. I need to fix the slide. I noticed a problem with it.
Okay.
Okay, we're back. And it didn't update it. It's fine. Whatever. Something's wrong with my tooling for this slideshow thing. Just ignore the fact that there's I'm trying to format this better. Anyway, platforms.
You're not noticing anything problematic.
That's fine if I mumble enough through. I'm just hand waving through what's you can't see the problem. So platforms. So Wing has had the concept of targets since its inception, I guess. And you see them on the screen here. Those were targets, but there weren't. We also had plugins. So plugins they basically were hooks into the compilation process to do various things with the tree structure that was created during pre-flight. But there was this kind of weird. It wasn't quite. It didn't quite go all the way. I think both of those concepts, both plugins and the target concept, platforms is a more holistic look at saying, okay, what does it mean to describe this, like how pre-flight works? I mean, the after your language, the Wing language gets compiled, it gets compiled into an intermediary set, and then that executes. And that execution environment is basically described by platforms. I think I'm overblowing it a little bit, but I that's how I like to view it, I guess.
As a compiler developer, you like to view it.
Yes, no, I mean, that's true.
For me, it's still. I mean, where does this compiles to? I mean, basically, I know. I mean, I'm not thinking of the presynth and synth as two different steps. I mean, I'm doing compile. I mean, if I have a C program and I'm compiling it to a ARM64 instruction set on a Linux machine, I get the assembler of that thing. I don't think about two steps. In Swift, there's I don't think about the intermediate stuff in the beginning. So I'm also using my hand waving, as you can see.
Yeah.
I think I'm only mentioning it because on the screen, so while you do see this, you're like, okay, this still works as it did before. And the intent is the same as like, I want to compile it for this target. Sorry. I want to compile it for this thing, platform. And it's actually now short for platform. But the interesting part that isn't really as analogous to existing like target systems is that you can provide multiple platforms.
So it's not multiple. It's a
composition.
It's a composition of. I mean, it's a composition of
Yeah.
platform, right?
There's literally multiple, but in the end, it becomes a platform. It's
Right.
so yeah. That's a.
In that way, it would probably make more sense to have commas between them and not platform, because it's one is a platform. I mean,
Contributions welcome.
What's that?
Contributions welcome.
I'm a product
We need
guy.
like a.
I'm a product guy. I
Yeah,
just
button for that.
contributed.
You did. That was the
That
idea.
was my
guy.
contribution.
That's fair.
I have a few thoughts. I mean, a few kind of ways I'm thinking about this. One is like a compiler backend. Like there are compiler suites that has this modular architecture where you can switch up the backend. And so in a sense, that's the compiler backend for Wing, right? Like when you're compiling your code, I think this is what Eyal maybe our initial. This is basically the way you take a Wing application and you manifest it on some platform, right? Like some cloud platform, and that decides everything about it, right? Like it decides which provisioning engine you're using, which resources make up, which resources are the concrete resources that you're using for different abstract resources. I think that's something that we're still not fully, we haven't baked fully. And so I think, like, to me, that's my mental model. It's basically the back end of how you're how is your application manifested on the specific technology. The fact that you can apply multiple platforms is I wouldn't over. I mean, I'm not over. It's a convenience thing in a way, right? Like you could technically create like a platform that if we only supported one platform, you could technically just wrote the code to create a platform and then bring in some plugins and add them in and inject them and basically formulate your own platform. And so it's basically just a shortcut to composing platform components together, right? Like in a way, I wouldn't. I hope that they'll be useful, but I wouldn't overthink the meaning.
Why did we change the flag name to platform? And why is it target?
From target?
Yeah. The target is a
so
platform.
I basically say it's a target platform.
Yeah.
That's why -t makes sense. I'm comfortable with target. I think it's completely reasonable. I would also say that these little things, these little SIM, TF-AWS, custom stuff, I wouldn't call them platform. They're actually platform providers. It's related to the conversation we had earlier with Ben. The platform is your Kubernetes cluster and your VPC and your accounts and your right, like that's the platform. But this is not the platform. This is just an adapter. This is just a provider for Wing that allows a Wing application to run on that platform. And so I feel like we're still, terminology. Maybe it's not as good as it should. Words are hard. Hassan is saying, yeah. We've been going back and forth with this as he's designed it, which is also, by the way, why I was like, let's just leave -t and -p. So it could be a plugin, could be a target, could be platform, could be whatever, right? Like provider, maybe.
-p also works.
I don't know. I think -p doesn't work.
Okay, so basically it became an ambiguous.
But yeah, maybe we come up with a better. They call it a backend. Maybe that's.
I like it. This is okay. Awesome.
Yeah, let's. I was gonna mention I'm pretty sure we're not doing well on time, but I will.
Okay.
I will keep going.
Let's move to the next one. Awesome.
So for the next one, brief mention of a syntax change. So constructors now use new instead of init as the name of that thing. That just came from like a quick discussion
over burrito.
Yeah, over a burrito. I like it. I don't know. I don't have a lot more to say about it other than I like the symmetry of like you say new and you're calling this function kind of. I mean, it's not the same, but I don't know. It's a nice symmetry. guess words are hard. Continued.
Yeah, I mean, someone had asked on Slack like what was the motivation, and I have to say like I haven't been super like elaborate about it, but to me, again, it's a stylistic thing. It's like a design thing. But like if I'm trying to like put some cognitive sense behind it or like some rationale behind it, then I feel one thing is that it's less cognitive load. Like if you read this and you're not a Wing programmer, you'll immediately understand what new is, right? Like I don't have to like explain to you that init is the constructor, and then you'll ask me, why is it not called constructor? And I was like, but constructor is such a long word. And so we go into this whole conversation about like, why did we not choose constructor? But nobody will ask, why did we choose new, right? Like actually this guy asked why didn't so,
well, it's only because we changed it. If they started as new, I don't think anyone would have asked.
Exactly. So I think that's an interesting, that's one of the reasons. Like it's just reduced cognitive load. And I think the other kind of like rule of thumb in a way that can go towards this is like less syntax, less keywords in the language. I try to make that argument at some point to Mark, and wasn't very successful with pre-flight and in-flight, and we've talked about it, a different topic. But I do think that generally speaking, if you have less keywords, it's a smaller surface area, less concepts, right? Like a keyword is usually needs to be correlated with like a concept, like a fundamental concept of the language. And I think like the concept of a constructor and the concept of creating new objects are the same concept. And so I think like associating them semantically is only makes sense. I don't know why others didn't do it before.
Yeah, it is weird to me that it's like this isn't really used. I think the only other one of this type of thing that I like is that C#. Just you write the name of the class.
Yeah, it's like Java.
And Java, I guess, yeah. So it's I kind of like that, but it's like
it's redundant.
Actually, it's redundant. Although I guess they have more use there because there's also like constructor overloading.
Right.
Yeah.
Things. Right. But I guess I don't know. Anyway, the only other thing I could say here is that maybe we don't even need a keyword at all. Maybe it could just be the parentheses and right here, because like it's basically a keyword that you can only use the. Well, no, I guess new we use other places. I don't know. That's a random thought.
No, I mean my holy grail is to put the parentheses next to the class name and turn the class into more functional. But that requires
that whole thing.
Yeah. That whole thing.
that whole discussion. Yeah, but that's just awareness for everyone that changes there. So if you see a red squiggly over a knit, then that's
we're actually getting some compiler crashes
from this change
from init. I didn't check the error. I didn't check the error, right? Like, so I think like we're getting some weird.
Well, it causes the parser to fail because like it's not it's like an unexpected place to find that.
Not super. Not a very friendly breaking change, I would say.
Yeah, probably. All right,
now
next up. So this is a breaking change, but it's probably one that most people would enjoy. So when you call, I don't like how this title's formatted, but you just look at the thing. So the HTTP module has a fetch function, which returns response, and it has a body property. And this was previously optional, but now it's not. Now it's always a string, which could be the optional version of this is an empty string.
Does this work with the internet? Because I'm pretty sure I've created the two options in my. I mean, I've returned a non-existing body and an empty body, and it was a different response. I've done this.
You've actually signaled to the user.
I've consumed APIs that had difference, not in this specific things, but undefined and empty string was different.
That's a different thing.
Not for body here. If that's the same, if that's how you're doing this with body, if 200 with an empty string, what is the? I mean, that for. I mean, I
think no body is zero length. Right? Like I'm not sure if I'm correct, but like it's basically content length equals 0. That's no body. And you could argue that an empty string is a 0,
Yeah, but I'm not.
Body.
We're not creating the internet from scratch here. I mean, I'm just.
No, I'm saying it's the same thing. There's no way to actually differentiate between an empty string and no body in HTTP responses. I think that's the rationale.
There's no way to do it.
Yeah, but we can check. I actually, I feel like it's kind of like one of those pragmatic things. We've actually had a lot of debates around this specific property and how we can make it easier to parse. And one idea was to actually turn parse into an optional T, and fail if you get a nil. And the other thing was maybe to just solve this specific use case and see what happens. I think Chris was proactive about it, and I like the direction, but I think it's a good point. If HTTP allows you to return, if HTTP allows you to differentiate between an empty string and no body, then maybe we need to reconsider.
It's more a question whether it's used or not. I mean,
it's
you don't think
likely
it's
not very used.
Yeah.
It's worth knowing that there's a precedent for this because nodes fetch has the same.
Okay.
It returns an empty string.
Right. That was one of the...
Always.
Okay.
It doesn't return undefined or null.
It never returns an undefined body.
It will always be something.
Okay.
And,
okay.
As far as I believe that's
yeah, exactly. So the answer is
you can actually tell that because the PR to implement this didn't change anything about how we implemented the thing. All it changed was the type signature. So I mean, in the end, it's actually it's funny. Like it would have worked anyway, even if it always would have been something.
Yeah, you can always bang it. You can always bang it, basically.
Nice.
Yeah. So it kind of makes sense. So if we change it to be optional, we're making a API choice just like to specifically add the use case of undefined body, and yeah, I'm in favor of this change.
I'm in favor of it. I think it's a good change if Node does the same.
If Node does it, it's correct.
Yeah, I mean if someone knows, I mean it got adopted Node. Yeah.
All right. Next up, the expect module. This PR was a long time coming. I think we kept having some little discussions about it. About like the name of the module and some other little stuff, but thank you to Sebastian for going through it all and getting it over the finish line and dealing with all of our pestering comments.
back and forth.
The really long back and forth. But I'm excited for this module to grow, especially it has a strong foundation already. I believe these are the only 4 methods or functions that are in it currently. But I expect this to get a lot
very
bigger.
strong foundation.
No, but those
I'm joking.
This couldn't have, I mean, from what I've noticed, the equal accepts an any and an any, right? Is that correct?
I believe so.
So this couldn't have been okay, sorry. It was fun, my Sebastian. So this couldn't have been written in Wing, right?
You can't define any.
You can do equal. There's no function overloading, so expect dot equal accept a string and a number.
No, there's no any. I mean, it's not using function overloading. It's using
there's no any. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to avoid any, but I'm assuming that at some point we'll.
It sounds like we almost. I mean, we weren't able to avoid any. We have.
I think we're ideally, and I think in the future there will come a day.
Generics.
Yeah, that these will function that way, and
this will be a T and a T.
Exactly.
But in the meantime, I don't think there's a reason we can't still have something like this where it'll tell you if you expect equal in 2 different types of things, it will fail in the end. We do have some safety around that.
Yeah, awesome.
No, but it'll fail. We won't fail during compilation. It will fail at runtime.
Yes, yeah.
And if it was TT, then compiler would have
awesome
helped.
Yeah,
great.
But contributions welcome, and even just ideas for where this can go. I think I'm a big fan of having really explicit messaging in your tests to it almost reads like a story now. Here's the state of my data and its various states, and then here's I love how it can be written. It's almost declarative in a sense. It's almost like here's all the list of things, and I'm into that for tests explicitly.
Yep.
So cool.
Thanks, Sebastian. I've used it
Thank you for
already.
that.
Great.
Change from Yoav, which I think will excite a lot of people. That
Which you
the
love.
so the order modifiers previously basically would shit itself every time you didn't put it in the exact correct order.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember the order. It's because there's actually we have a lot of modifiers.
Yeah.
So remembering the order is not a trivial task. Like this is wrong. I don't even remember. I think pub has to be first.
Yeah.
Maybe extra has to be. Actually, I don't know. I don't even know why this is wrong, but this would have been wrong.
No, pub.
For extra.
Good, we had this.
And yeah, extern I think was in the wrong spot in terms of being a good place for it. But now anyway, the order modifier does not matter. There is a follow-up issue to do something about kind of maybe doing something to enforce a good order, but not necessarily make it a scream at you red, you've done the bad by putting them in the wrong order.
You're a bad programmer.
You're a bad programmer because you didn't remember that extern should be I don't remember.
Probably Phil.
Sure, why not? So this will I think this will help a lot. I mean, it's also the big thing that was problem before is that it would also give you parser error. Like the parser couldn't handle the order. So it wasn't just that you got red squigglies from it being wrong.
Oh,
even the compiler didn't know what was wrong. It just thought you punch it in the face. It didn't understand. So this is much better even for that case as well.
Thanks you all for that.
Thank you.
What is it?
One more.
I gotta update my my tooling for these slideshows.
We missed one.
No, we didn't.
No, I didn't. Or I went back. So we're on copy. So copy for cloud.bucket. Thank you to Gary for adding this.
Nice.
We can. It's a pretty straightforward API. Makes a lot of sense. Getting us closer to being able to just use FS for buckets. Just like basically just do any file system operation. No. This was just a generally useful one to have, and he implemented it for all targets, which is awesome.
Nice.
That's awesome. Not super common to do. Contributors, for good reason, very reasonable. It's very reasonable to just do one or two targets. I'm saying targets instead of platforms. But he did it for all of them. So nice. I think all of them, maybe not one of them.
Azure and GCP, basically, right?
He did it for the ones that not everyone's using, which is
okay.
So it's thank you for doing that the extra.
Oh, we see Gary every week. Yeah, it's crazy. That's awesome.
Gary's here every week, and another person who's here a lot of the time, if my thing doesn't freak out,
of course,
is Marcho, who added cloud.
Nice.
So I think this was already there for the cloud website as well. Maybe not. No, I think it was for website, but not so. But the React app resource, you couldn't. You couldn't give a domain. So if you, it would just not work with that. So now you can give it a domain, and that's where it will be. Like if you deploy to AWS, it'll give you that. You can visit your domain to actually, and it'll attach that to the CloudFront distribution. So much more usable as an actual thing now.
And
for real use cases.
CloudFront distribution is expected to be part of like existing, right? Like it's a reference to your cloud platform.
Yeah.
I don't think I think the domain, like the actually I don't know the implementation, but Route 53 domain probably has to exist, not the CloudFront distribution.
I think you need to
right. Yeah. I mean the hosted.
There has to be a resource
the hosted zone.
Hosted zone.
Expected to already. Like it doesn't create a hosted zone or authenticate or check your certificate or anything, but.
Yes, exactly. That's a pretty standard. Like, not.
No, it's a pretty common. That's what I usually refer to as like part of the platform, right? Like the platform contains those types of resources in most cases. Mm-hmm. They're not part of your application.
All right, so thank you again to Marcia for that and for the last few. It's a little bit of some console roundup, and I wish I got more screenshots or videos, but I would encourage everyone to go look at what changes have happened over the last 2 weeks in the console. It's always hard to get the feel, like you need to feel it. Actually, it always feels different when there's been a lot of changes. So first thing to point out is that the root node is gone. I'm in the screenshot. You do actually see it on the side. It is still. You can't really read it probably, but
Yeah, we
it
can.
does still say root. But there's nothing here. There's not like that empty root node just sitting there taunting you.
Yeah, I just opened the bug about this.
Yeah, you open it, and you're gonna see it in the next picture. You're talking about the halo.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
It's
I'll show it to you.
serious,
But yeah. So thank you to Christian for adding that. I think that was one of your suggestions from you, Alad. Which I'm in favor of this.
Yeah, I think we
having
still
anything
need
there.
to work on the empty state because I feel like it's a bit too empty.
Yeah, the application goes inside here.
But
We're gonna put just like a sad face in here or something.
maybe
something
like
cute.
that. No, maybe whatever.
I didn't put anything on the slides for this, but I also wanted to mention that Christian did some effort into improving the rendering performance of this. And I always love to see that. I can't put a screenshot of it. I don't know how big of an effect it was, but it's you can tell like when you're just removing just like unnecessary rendering. Everyone loves just like don't waste my computer's time. It's always great to put those changes in.
Environmental.
Yeah. Very environmentally conscious for us. And yeah, so here's the I'll say what good thing here, and then Ayala, you can talk about the halo that's around. But I think this has gone through a couple iterations. I don't know what happened in the last 2 weeks, but the function names inside of an API are like super, like this is what you would expect to see. Like this is the method, the HTTP method you're calling, and like the route. I know exactly what this is now. Like and when you click on it, you can see the actual handler and like what's going to run there. So this was a change from Shy to add that. I think we've gone through iterations like because if you remember way before, this was like the randomized function name basically.
Right.
Or it looked like that. It had a GUID and whatever. And we've been shortening it and making it more meaningful. And now I think this is a really good state to be in to convey a lot of good meaning quickly.
There's more. I think we can go even more. When you think about Cloud API, basically on the left side, this is basically, your API gateway. In fact, there's a Lambda function behind it. That's an implementation.
Yeah, that's actually not the.
That's not. No one really cares about it. If you click on the Lambda function, you can't really do anything with it.
Sure, if you're talking about like how it's laid out, like I think you're talking about like how it's composed and laid out.
Yeah.
But in terms of like a string that conveys text like a thing to you, I think this is pretty. Yeah, this is pretty close. I mean, you almost can't convey less information.
Yeah, but again, I think it's confusing, right? In many ways, because it's not useful in any it's informational. It's informational, but if you go and actually click on it and try to invoke it, it's not gonna do what you expect. Like it won't issue a GET request to that route, which is exactly what you would expect if you would, right? Like so, I think like there's definitely some UX. It's
a step forward for sure. For what we
Listen,
have.
guys, you're undercutting my compliments to Shy for this change.
Great job. No, it's
definitely nicer. It's more
awesome.
Oh, always getting better. That's it. That's it for the changelog.
Okay, awesome. Mark, that was great.
We don't have an outro.
Yeah.
We're not doing.
Mark, thank you for doing this time after time and taking the effort and creating great content.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really, really awesome.
Really awesome.
Glad to do it.
And I think we're gonna wrap the show to this
25 minutes late.
Yeah, I see Dana is nodding and cheering. This is time to wrap. So we'll do this kind of traditional style by basically